Welcome to all of you. Thank you for some of you who are introducing yourself, Jennifer and Casey and Earl, and thank you. And good to see some of you that I have already known. Welcome to my screen today. I appreciate it. I am going to do full screen so I can see all of you. There we go. Good deal. And Tammy, good to meet you in person, or at least on screen. I've talked to you a bit on the phone. Hello, Dan. There we go. So today is a day that is different for me in the sense that I am doing a training on a number of, some would call tricks. They're communication beneficial phrases, words, or potential faux pas for leaders. And it's important to understand the nuances of these things. And I promise you this, you're going to be able to walk away from this Zoominar with 7 tips, words, phrases, concepts that will indeed make a difference in your leadership. Quite frankly, they'll make a difference in your relationships. Whoever you are engaged with, friends, family, these words and phrases make a huge difference. Now, when we grow up, we don't necessarily learn some of these things. And so by habit and by inertia, we keep using words or phrases that are actually damaging or potentially dangerous. And I'm going to show you what those are. Now, the basic concept is no different than all of our trainings on the website. I know a number of you are members, and you know how it is. You learn a little mind shift, a little something different, learn a different way to present something. Example that you've heard me talk about 138 times. We lead accountable people rather than hold people accountable. That shift in how we think and how we interact with people makes a huge difference. So you'll remember, those of you who are members, that there are little things that make a big difference. And that's true of anything. It's true of life. It's true of your company. It's true of your project. It's true of whatever your agency is. Little things make the difference. It's never usually one big thing. And by the way, those of you who are members, if you have not checked out our 8 steps yet, please be sure and do that. I've expanded those dramatically. There's a core system for those of you who aren't members. There's a core system we call the Truby Management System. That is the bedrock for leading a high-performing team, running a business, relating to anyone. And it used to be I taught just the 8 steps as they were. Now I've added additional trainings. So for each step, there is, first of all, the science about it, and then how do you use it to lead with influence. Those are people that you don't have authority over, a boss, a friend, a family member. How do you use it to lead a team? And how do you use it to lead a company? So they're dramatically expanded. If you haven't looked at that, I encourage you to do so. So this is going to be a little bit different. It's not like it's one thing. It's not like teaching you how to delegate or teaching you how to build a team or teaching you how to deal with conflict. Oh, by the way, in conflict, there's a new tutorial I've been working on. It takes a lot of post-production after filming to do so, but within probably a couple of weeks, there'll be a brand new training on conflict management. It'll be about 30 minutes long, and it dives in deeply into what causes it, how to prevent it, and how to fix it when it happens. It's going to be a powerful training. So that's coming down the pike. So this one is not about a thing, except it's about communication category. Because as you know, at the core of every interaction as a leader, as a person, at the core of every interaction is communication. And at the core of that communication are our words. And our words can trigger responses that we want or trigger responses that we don't want. And what's unnerving is when we use words that trigger responses we don't know or we don't want, and we don't know that we triggered those. So that's what this is about today. It's about communication, but 7 powerful words and concepts that have to do with words that you can learn and deal with. Now, the first one, and by the way, just in case you wonder where this comes from, those of you that know me, I have, I grew up on a cattle ranch. I have a BA in theology and an MA in psychology, and was a marriage and family therapist. And I've spent close to 40 years in working in business. So I've got those perspectives. And this particular piece comes from the psychology training that I've had over the years. And this one here, this concept right here is magical. It affects how you understand people, and it affects the kinds of words that you use and the kinds of words that you pay attention to. And here it is. Number one is every response is about the person. Every response is about us. Here's what I mean. Let me give you a simple little illustration. Line up 100 people in a row, or bring them in one at a time. Doesn't matter what illustration setup you do. Hand each person a snake, a simple little garter snake. Hand them a snake. Those 100 people will have different responses. Some will freak out. Some will want it. And there'll be various nuances within categories of responses. People, the situation of handing the snake remains consistent. Where is the response coming from? It's coming from the individual. Now, what this means is you can start listening to themes from the people around you. And when you listen to the themes of the things that they focus on, you're going to understand what drives them, what motivates them, how to understand them better. Here's a little example of that. Let's say that you've got 3 people. One of them is having money problems. Another one is having health problems. Maybe they've just been diagnosed with a form of cancer or something. And another one is having relationship problems. And you tell them about your vacation. The person with the money problems is going to ask questions about cost. Wow, that sounds great. How much did that cost? What did it cost you to get there? What was the resort amount? Was there a fee for this? Was there a fee for that? And they'll ask you questions about the money aspect of the vacation that you told. The person with the health issues. Was that hard to be that far away from home? How close were you to the closest hospital? What if something went wrong? The person with the relationship problems. Who did you go with? Was it good to get away? You see, you can tell the same story of the vacation, i.e., present them a snake, and the different responses are going to come from where that person's theme is. It's going to come from where that person's pain points are. And typically it's that. It's not necessarily the joy points in their life, because it's our pain points that drive us. So if the person who's been diagnosed with cancer has a beautiful new granddaughter, has a wonderful gift that they've been given of some inheritance, has this, that, and the other thing that's positive, it's the pain point that will drive them. Now, why is that important? Because if you understand the person's pain points, you're going to be able to connect with them, empathize with them, understand them, even use that to motivate them in some way. So every response is about us. You want to figure out you? Think about your responses. Think about what it drives you. What are the things that you continue to focus on? What are the things that you continue to talk about? When you continue to talk about a certain theme, that's something that's inside of you. It's inside of you. Now, I need to stir this in just a little bit, because we all experience and by default fall into the trap of what's called projection. If I have health issues, I'm going to project that onto you. How do you feel? Not necessarily if I was diagnosed with cancer, but if I have health issues, I'm going to think that you are concerned about health issues too. When I just turned 70 a few weeks ago, and gifts are still in order if you want to have my address and maybe shirt size or something. And that's been on my mind, partly because it doesn't make sense. The signpost of 70 doesn't match with my reality, how I feel, how I look. Well, that's my opinion. Uh, it doesn't match with reality. So that's been a theme. I've been talking about, Tanya knows, I've been talking about that and talking about my health is great and good genetics, and it's hard to put a Truby in the ground and all that kind of stuff. Why? Because it's here. So, when I talk to somebody else that's maybe up there, I wonder how they're thinking about it, how their age is. So we project onto others what's important to us. So here's the core. I'll boil it down to a tip. This is the first one. Every response is about us, or every response is about the other person. Pay attention to the themes. Be an observer of the theme, and you're going to be able to relate. You can ask questions. You can understand that person. Now, here's the second one. If you've had my training on communication, you know that I teach you about personality types. And personality types tend to communicate in certain ways. And there's a couple of personality types, the choleric and the sanguine, that just pounce on something immediately. Cholerics with the answer, and sanguines with wanting to tell their story. And if you're going to be a powerful leader and an influencer of other people, it's important to stay neutral until you know. Where is this person coming from? Stay neutral until you know. Because if you don't stay neutral, you will tend to be judgmental, potentially pre-timing in what needs to be said, and you can draw conclusions that are not valid and not accurate. I'm going to tell you the tip and the words here in just a second. But here's an example of that. Back in the, I think it was the late 70s, I was getting my psychology training and becoming a marriage and family therapist. And one of the themes that I was focused on, because of some classes and some patients that I had, was abusive parents to children. They were sexually abusing children. It was very sad. And it was horrible how it played out. My best friend and his wife and 3 kids went camping with my wife and I. Little Shannon, sweet little girl. She and I were over by the creek, and she started talking to me. She said, "I'm afraid of Daddy." Click, antenna went up. What's going on? And I was practicing, and I've tried to always practice, stay neutral until I know. I said, "How come?" She said, "I just am." I said, "When are you afraid of him?" She said, "When he hugs me." Ah, my best friend, I'm freaking out. And then I said, "What happens when he hugs you?" She said, "It hurts me. He's very rough." I didn't know what to do, but I stayed neutral until I knew. So I kept talking to her more and talking to her more. I said, "So how does he hug you?" She said, "He puts his cheek right here on my cheek." I said, "Well, what happened?" She said, "He does it when he hasn't shaved and his whiskers are so rough and they hurt me." Oh, it was just about him not shaving and his whiskers hurting his little girl. Had nothing to do with anything else. Imagine if I would have picked up the phone and reported him to CPS immediately because I've got a problem. No, that was not the thing to do. We got to stay neutral till we know. Now, how do you do that? How do you do that? You do that by asking open-ended questions. And I'm going to give you the best one to ask. Open-ended questions are questions that allow the other person's brain to go wherever they want to go. A closed-ended question is a question that ends with a yes or a no. So you didn't like that, right? We often project. Or did you like that? Either way, it ends up with a yes or no. So here's the phrase. Here's tip number 2. Practice this, have this embedded in your vocabulary, use it over and over and over again. Tell me more. I'm sure some of you have heard it. It's a simple phrase. Tell me more. Tell me more. Now, that particular little phrase is magical because it never results in the other person going, no. How come? Because they're the one that's talking about it. Oh, I hated my vacation. Now, your projection would go, why? Did it cost too much? Why? Were you not feeling good? Why? Was it the people that you were with? Our theme will cause us to judge or to project onto the other person, and then that takes them somewhere else. And here's the worst case scenario. They believe you don't get them. You don't understand them. So you just simply say, tell me more. Well, we went, and they will tell you more. And you keep asking you keep asking the questions about, well, tell me more about that trip or tell me more about the car. Tell me more about that day that you went out of the ocean. Tell me more. That's the second one. So the first one is to remember that every response is about you or the other person. Listen for themes. And then when you get the theme, you can use the second one. Tell me more. Tell me more. Now, here's one that we all use, and we must prevent ourselves from using it. And it is using the word why. You must avoid using the word why. Why, you ask? Because why always triggers a parent-child rationalizing defensive response. Let me give you an example. I see Earl sitting there. Let's say Earl and I work in the same place. And Earl and I share a company car. They won't give us one, each of us one. We have to share one. So for our department, we have to share this company car because we have to go out and look at different things or meet different people. So we share the company car. And so Earl is going to use it until noon. And then I have to go right after lunch to meet with a client at 1 o'clock. Earl comes in at 1:20. Now put yourself in Earl's shoes. He's driving in. He walks up to me. And I say these words. Now, when I say these words, notice how it makes you feel. I go, Earl, why weren't you here on time? See how it makes you feel? Now, let me change the words. I'll use the exact same energy. Earl, what prevented you from being here on time? Where does your mind go? Your mind goes to what prevented you. When you use the word why, it causes you to justify self. When you use the words what, how is it that, tell me more, when you use a different kind of phraseology to ask the question, it causes the person to focus on the what rather than the reason or the defending and justifying rationale. Notice here the power of our words, folk. You cannot say a word without something happening in the other person's mind. If I say, Tammy, do not think of a watermelon. Guess what she just thought of? If I say to Terry, Terry's my little boy. He's not little, I can tell that. But he's walking. No, you're not, are you? Terry walks to the table in the kitchen. And I say, Terry, don't spill the milk. That's like saying, don't think of a watermelon. Our brains literally have to take a negative into a positive to be able to process it. So Terry has to process in his mind and think about the spilling of the milk in order to even process my sentence. I'm walking down a tangent here just for a little bit, but it's relevant. We worked with a huge steel fabrication company in Wisconsin, huge. I mean, they built these cabs for some oil. I'm going to use technical terms on you here in a second. These oil things, And they were so big that 4 semi trucks would fit into the bucket of these things. I mean, the steel was amazing. The safety was a big deal, and they were having problems with safety. So I tried to analyze what was going on, and all of their protocols and their admonitions were don't walk under the ladder, don't do this, don't do that. That's no different than don't spill the milk or don't think of a watermelon. So I watched that going on, and I instituted a different phraseology. Be careful when you climb the ladder. Do this, do that, rather than don't do that. And their safety rating got better simply because it changed the mind. You know, when you think of what can go wrong, that attracts it. Any of you that are golfers, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Don't hit it in the water. Yeah, what are you going to do? You're going to hit it in the water. You know, you can get, well, you know what I'm talking about. Don't do it. You're going to think about doing it. So when you say, so your words trigger something in the other person's mind. So when you use the word why, that causes the other person to begin justifying, rationalizing, or defending themselves as a person. So I say, Earl, why weren't you here on time? And Earl goes, well, you're never on time anyway. And he throws an attack at me. And then I go, that's just like you, Earl. You never pay attention to anybody else. You're so arrogant and egotistic. And so now we're just pointing barbs at each other as people rather than the specific issue. Earl, what prevented you from being here on time causes him to give me the what. And it may be legitimate, it may not be. But in any case, we're focusing on the what rather than defending ourselves. When you do why, you get away from the issue and you can't even focus on the issue. So number one, every response is about us. Stay neutral until you know. Number two, tell me more. Tell me more. Number three, avoid using the word why. Use things like what prevents, what prevented, what happened. Another one is a simple little word. It's a magical word. And it's when you use it, you're able to, again, focus on the real issues. Now, notice the theme here. The theme is being other-centered and understanding what's really going on in the other person. The theme is figuring out something substantive that you can focus on. Specifically is the word I'm talking about. Specifically. I've had companies that say, we need to develop our leaders. And I'll say, what specifically is the outcome you're looking for? And you know what? That can vary from company to company. One company may want people to be more outgoing and in sales. I had one company that was that. Another company, I want my people to be more efficient and productive so we can be more profitable. Another was, I need my people to deal with the low performers. Another was, I need my people, my leaders, to be able to be more motivating and forward thinking. So if you don't know, the only thing you have left is a projection. And what you're going to project is your theme. So this theory of this system of being other-centered and being neutral until you know, the word specifically allows you to deal with that. I keep using people that I know just because I'm using people that I know. I'm going to use you again, Terry. Now, Terry's got his son, right? You're kind of working on developing your company. And have I got the right? Yeah, okay. So a father and a son, shoot. The projection, enormous. He can easily fall into the trap. Now, Terry doesn't because he's perfect. I know that. See, he's got the thumbs up. I've done my research. I've talked to his people. They'll say he's perfect. And then they look to him to get that bonus again. No, but But notice the closer you are in relationship and the longer you have a relationship with a person, the more you put them in a box and you will project onto them and you know what they're talking about when you don't. Tanya and I have known each other for 80 years. Well, it feels like that. I've known her forever. And because we are so close, she or I can think we know what the other person is talking about. And we have glitches all the time because we're wrong, especially when we're trying to use email or text. We can email something, we can text something. What the blank is she talking about? And she knows what she's talking about. It just didn't come through in the truncated choleric text. Or I can do the same thing. I can send her something, and I thought I was clear, and I wasn't at all. Shoot, I sent her out of the house going gardening one time last week, wasn't it, Tanya? Or 2 weeks ago, when I sent her something that I thought was innocuous. It was like nothing. And she thought for sure that I meant something else. Now, she has learned, and I have learned, we've got to ask the question. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? So the closer you have relationships with people, and especially if they're familial, you've got to use some of these tools to really stay neutral until you know. So the word specifically allows that to happen. Dad, I don't know if we can do that. What specifically are you concerned about? In Tammy's agency, she has all these people that she's learning. She's a new leader, and she could assume she knows what they need. And one of them goes, I'm really concerned about our agency. Now she could run with that. I am too. And I'm concerned, blah, 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 blah. Instead of saying, what specifically are you concerned about? So the word specifically is specifically a word I'm suggesting you use. So we've got the first one, which is every response is about the person. Pay attention to the themes. That'll give you a category of their pain points and understanding them. The second is tell me more, which is a real powerful tool to ask open-ended questions until you know. You stay neutral until you know. And then why? Avoid the word why. Use what prevents, what prevented you, what happened, and then specifically. What specifically are you talking about? What specifically is your concern? What specifically are you suggesting? Here's one I'm going to just bounce off of you for a second. There's a training in those of you who remember. You know what? I'm looking at this. There's a lot of you that aren't members. You must become a member. I mean, that's my sales pitch to you today. You must become a member. And the members here can attest to that. You can become a member for $1. And if you can afford $1, then you can become a member, have access to everything for 14 days. Poke around, learn stuff. If you learn everything you want to know, get out. You've lost $1. That's all. So my sales pitch to you today is you must become a member. By the way, just so you know, I play with you because I think most of you have seen me before. We do this for the outcomes, not the income. I'm not going to get rich on your dollar, Julian. I see Julian there. He's got this handsome beard, and clearly he's a perfect leader. Of course, just like Terry, but Terry isn't. So if you go in and you can poke around, learn the stuff you want, and we are hungry to help people. I told you already my theme. I'm 70. The only reason we did this website is so that what I teach can transcend my existence. It's the culmination of my life work. So I'll appreciate it if you'll just check it out. Just check it out. If it's not for you, so be it. But when you go there, I was going to tell you something. It was really important too. I was going to tell you, I don't know if you're ready for it. I think I'll save it. There was something that was really important. Anyway, when we're talking about specifically. Okay, the next one, this word, it had to do with dealing with low performers, dealing with communication issues. We really believe And one of our core foundational tenets is to be other-centered. That's the only way you could be effective anyway. As a project manager, as a company, as an agency, the only way that you could be effective is if you understand who you're serving. And all of this stuff is allowing you to be other-centered. Now, here's another word, another tool. The word is unacceptable. Oh, I can't tell you the power of this word. Let me give you the psychology behind it. Because you're a human being, I can bet my life on the fact that there are certain drivers that are deep within your being, deep within your psyche. For example, survival. Your body, your whole being will attempt to survive. You're not going to attempt to die unless there's some major dysfunction that's going on. But quite frankly, even when I was doing my master's training and having my practice, people who are suicidal see that as their best way out. In other words, it's for them, unfortunately, it's a positive thing. It's very, very, very sad. But come back to the core point. All human beings want what's best for them. So we have this drive to survive. We also have this absolute drive and necessity to have a sense of belonging. And quite frankly, the sense of belonging is tied to survival. Back in the 35, I don't know, somewhere in there, there was a time when hospitals and doctors, physicians, medical workers believed that a baby that was premature needed to use all of their energy to survive. So the medical practice at the time was to not touch that baby, to not have any physical touch, but to allow that baby to use all its energies to survive. And the death rate for premature babies was quite high. One nurse in one hospital, I can't quote the details now, it's been too long ago that I read the study. One nurse in one hospital couldn't take it. And she took these premature babies and she would hold them and then put them back and hold them and put them back. Didn't tell anybody because she didn't want to get in trouble. But the outcome of her actions caused the death rate for her unit to go down. And in typical scientific fashion, they began to study the stats as to what was causing this to happen. Finally, she confessed. And it turned out, long story short, that the scientists, the physicians, and the medical world realized that babies needed to be acknowledged, validated, and have this sense of connection and belonging. And it caused the babies to live. And it's the same with you and me. We have this drive to belong. That's why churches, in fact, conservative churches, even more than others, gangs, Navy SEALs, have a sense of belonging that is huge. The harder it is to join, the greater the sense of belonging. By the way, that's a whole other tangent I won't take. When you're a member, you can read all about hiring right and getting people on board. And there's a process that we teach that allows it to not be difficult, but to be significant, so that when somebody's on your team, they feel like they belong to your team. And when that happens, folks, there's less complaining, there's more motivation, there's a greater sense of ownership. So we have, excuse me, allergies here in Mount Shasta. It's turning spring and it's beautiful. We have this need to belong. Now, guess what happens? If you hear the word from somebody you trust, your team leader, Bill, this is unacceptable. It hits at that very core spot of the need to belong. I grew up on a cattle ranch, like I told you, and this sense of belonging is how horses are disciplined. You may have heard about the horse whisperer. The concept is very simple. It's a different way to break a horse. Typically you get on it and you ride it until it submits. But there's another way. And I've done this. It is magical. You take the horse, this unruly horse, and you put it in a circular corral. You get this long rope and you just keep it running, keep it running, keep it running, keep it running. Now let me back up for a second. Out in the wild, if a colt is acting up, the mother pushes it out away from the herd. That is death to a colt because they need each other to survive. Then the mother faces that colt like this. You be the colt. Faces the colt, faces the colt. And as the mother's facing the colt, then the colt will finally show signs of submission, like, okay, I'm a bad boy. And the mother will turn and the colt will come right back to the herd. So I take this horse. This is the old horse whisperer way. You let it run in the corral, circle, run, 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 until it shows, and we won't go into it for now, there's 3 signs of willingness to belong. And when I see that happen, I simply turn and the horse walks right up to me. And I can walk around and it'll follow me because it now belongs. Now, that simple process is magical when it comes to people. There's a whole process of discipline, like I said, but it's based on the concept of belonging. I want you to belong. And I treat the behavior separate from the person. But when I start by using the word, Mary, this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. And always that causes the person to start owning that and focusing on what to do about it. It's magical. If I said, Mary, you've got to stop doing that, then Mary starts to give excuses. Then Mary starts to justify herself. Then Mary starts to even point fingers back. But when I say, Mary, this is unacceptable, it is powerful. It is magical. It's melting. It's melting. So use the word specifically to find out the issue, and then it's unacceptable to put it in the right ballpark. So we've got every response is about us. Tell me more. To learn more, open-ended questions. Avoid using the word why. Say what prevented, how is it that, tell me more. Specifically, what is the issue? Using the word specifically. Unacceptable is the word to use to make something unacceptable. And then here's another one. There's 2 more. Number 6 is to use agreement language when you are asking for somebody to do something. Agreement language. There's power in the question. 3 basic concepts that you'll learn, that some of you have already learned, that are the foundational to everything that we teach. 1 is be other-centered. 2, lead accountable people. Don't take responsibility for their accountability. And 3, manage by agreements. And if I say, let's say Karen, I see Karen there. I don't see Karen because Karen's block is blocked. But let's say I'm looking at Karen and I go, Karen, do this. She has the opportunity to grumble about it. She has the opportunity to just do it in a halfway. She has the opportunity to complain about it to other people. But if I say, Karen, will you do this? And she says yes, then she has to own it. And she does. At a psychological level, she owns it. And when she doesn't follow through, I can say, Karen, didn't we agree? There is power in agreement language. So when you ask somebody to do something, you are being respectful. You are being considerate. I had a wife of a man who was a manager in Texas. And she learned the power of the agreement, the power of agreement language. And it changed her leadership. It changed her team. They felt more respected. They felt more listened to when she would ask them to do things. And then they would say yes. And then she would get into specifically what she would mean and make sure they had the clarity of outcomes. Well, she taught a bunch of stuff that she learned to her husband. And He appreciated it too, until one day. She and he were having an issue at home. She told me this story. And she said, we couldn't come to closure on it. And he was wanting one thing, I was wanting another. And so I finally said to him, she goes, can we agree that blankety blank is what we're working on? He said, don't use that Bill Truby crap on me. But then he goes, but you're right. She said it was really funny because she said he focused first of all on deflecting to blame me and then realized they really needed to come to an agreement. So the core words there, the power words are, will you? Now I get it. As a leader, there's sometimes you don't have time for a will you. Sometimes you can only jump into, you got to do this. Make that the exception, not the rule. And always circle back to thank the person or the people, give them purpose and context why you had to do it so quickly. A leader sometimes has to issue a command, but that should be rare. Engage people. Use agreement language. Now here's the seventh one. This one is probably the most, I don't know, woo-woo. It definitely has deep, powerful, clear, concrete psychological roots. But it has nuances that most people that I teach have never thought about before. If you say, I can't drink, somebody offers you some wine, and you say, I can't drink, there's a different place that those words come from than if you say, I don't drink. If you say, I can't eat that, compared to I don't eat that. Can't, in the mind, has something else or someone else in control. I can't do it because of this disease. I can't do it because of that person. I can't do it because my wife is looking over my shoulder. I can't. Always there's something else that is making you do it. Don't, I don't do this, suggests decision and ownership. I don't drink. That suggests decision and ownership. Now, if you use those words carefully in your company, in your team, in your relationships, you can say, at ABC Company, we don't do that. That's powerful. It gives a sense, it actually plays into some of the other things we've been talking about. We don't do that here. That's because if you want to belong, we don't do that here. We don't. If you say, I can't do that, we can't do that, that does not suggest ownership. It means somebody's making you do it. Somebody's proclaiming that. If you're talking with somebody else and they say, I can't do that, here's what you ask. You don't say why. You say, what prevents you from doing it? And when you say that, you can even add the word specifically. What specifically prevents you from doing that? You can stack these things. But when a person says, I can't do that, that means they're not in control. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough this or that. Then you have something you can deal with. So I can't do that. What prevents you? Well, you didn't give me enough blankety blank. Well, then let's deal with that issue. So those are two little interesting magical words that you don't necessarily use when you're listening or talking to other people. The primary one is for you. I have this whole training. I don't know where it houses. Could be in the membership on, I know I'm getting obnoxious about that. How to remember names. I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that you can remember names. I know that because I've proven it over and over and over again. I'll have 30 people in a room. I'll teach the tool, and then each person can go around and name everybody. And these are people that don't know each other. You can learn how to remember names very, very quickly. And there's two things that you have to do before you can even learn the tool. One is to believe that you can. Because what do people say? I can't remember names. That is a whole different mindset than saying, I don't remember names. If you don't remember names, that's fixable. If I can't, that's a limitation. So we got to get rid of the lie, I can't remember names. And then we got to get rid of the plural names. You do not have to remember everybody's name. You just have to remember the name of the person you're talking to. When you learned your fruits, you learned a banana is a banana. When you learned that as a little tiny child, you didn't have to learn all 43,000 pieces of fruit. You just have to learn the banana is a banana. And when you look at a banana, you don't have to go, okay, it's not an apple, it's not an orange, it's not a grapefruit, it's not a kiwi, it's not a. No, you don't have to do all the other fruits. You just go with that one. So that's a little side note. But the bottom line is, when you say I can't, you're a victim. Hear me. When you say I can't, you're a victim of something else. If you say I don't, then you own it. In my therapy, I would not allow people to just come and talk. I wanted to get in there, fix it, and be done. And when I would have people with repetitive problems, like I had this one person who, well, I won't go into detail. When you have a specific problem that you can't get rid of, own it. There are different words that are associated with don't, one of which is do. I don't do that. I do this. And if there's something that you're doing over and over again and you don't like it, own it. Say, this is what I do. I do this. And when the minute you say that, you're not going to like it. And when you own something, you're more apt to do something with it. Now, there's a whole bunch of nuances, psychological, powerful nuances, but I just share with you that and ask you just to try it. Everything in your life, the minute you say, if you hear yourself saying can't, change it to don't and watch what happens. Watch what happens when you own it. Okay, so those are the 7. I'm going to see if you have any questions here. I'm going to repeat them real quick. Every response is about us. So we listen for themes in ourselves and other people. Number 2, specifically in the concept of wanting to make sure we understand what the other person means, tell me more. Ask open-ended questions. Number 3, avoid the word why. Instead, use what prevented you. How is it that? Tell me specifically what the problem is. If not, Earl, why weren't you here on time? What prevented you from being here on time? Number 4, use the word specifically as often as you can. And that'll give you more specifically what the person is talking about, what they mean. Number 5, use the word unacceptable if you want to eliminate or truncate bad issues, bad behaviors. Number 6, use agreement language. Ask, will you, instead of just telling. And number 7, especially for your own self, own everything. Own your stuff. Never fall victim to I can't. Instead, own it and say I don't. And you can even finish the sentence. Therefore, I choose to do this or that.